everybody, welcome to Puppet Vikings. I'm Einar the Boneless, and today we're going to be looking at making clothing. Now Hilde's going to talk us through how she made her new underdress. That should be interesting. Let's go over to her now.
So this is the pattern I'm using. This is based on bits of fabric that they found in places like Hedeby in Burka. It's a long piece for the body. It's folded along this top edge here, and then this distance from here to here is across the top of my shoulders. This distance from here to here is the top of my shoulders to where I want my dress to finish, and then there's a hole cut in here and a slit so it will fit easily over my head. Then we have the sleeves. Those are just once around the top of my arm and then from the shoulder to the wrist. And because sleeves need to move about a bit, we add in a little square under the arms just to give it a little bit more flexibility. The exact size there doesn't really matter. And then this bit here is to do the same for letting your legs move while you walk. So it's a folded triangle that just comes up the sides and stops just below the arm piece. All we need to do now is pin it together and sew it up, and I'll have a lovely new dress. So lots and lots of sewing to do. Because this is a dress for Viking reenactment, everything has to be sewn by hand, because obviously the Vikings didn't have sewing machines, and so we don't use them either. The fabric I'm working with is a very thin linen, and I'm using a matching linen thread to sew it with. I'm going to be sewing everything using a running back stitch, which is where you do a needle's worth of running stitch and then a back stitch to anchor it a bit tighter before you move on to the next section. The whole thing is going to be just pinned together and then sewed. I'm starting off by putting in the side gauze. Those are then going to leave me the space I have for the arms and the little gussets that go underneath the arms. That's the side bits being sewn in, and as you can see, running back stitch is what I'm using there. This is a very, very versatile pattern. It's usable for pretty much any Dark Age or medieval costume, and if you want to make a men's tunic, you can use exactly the same pattern. Just rather than going down to the length of a dress, you stop around knee length, which is the right length for a tunic. The apron dress that I'll be making next is also using very much the same pattern, although that stops at underarm height and then has straps that go over the shoulder to be held on by turtle brooches. So once you've got the hang of this, it is really, really very simple. The reason it starts off with rectangles is because they were how they were woven at the time. They would have been worked on a loom, and the width of the loom was how far you could reach across from one side to the other, which is roughly the size of a human body. So that's quite a good size for them to weave in, and then those strips of woven cloth are what you'd work from to make your clothes from. So pretty much everything was worked around a rectangular shape. I'm going to be using a really simple rolled hem for finishing off the edges, just to stop everything from fraying, because linen is terrible for fraying, so you do need to make sure everything is secured. So this is a sleeve going together. You can see the little gusset being sewn in, and then we will attach that into the main body. And I think that's the other one being done for the other side. Again, everything is just being sewn with that simple running back stitch. Oh no, that was still the first one. This is the other side. So it's going together now. We can see it's being pinned and then sewn, and then it's now being attached to the body. So this is pretty much the dress assembled once these bits have gone in. It is just those seams. There's no fancy gathering. There's no real technical work involved at all. It's just pinning and sewing. They are the easiest of dresses to get started with. You just have to make sure that you sew everything firmly so they don't fall apart. You can see the kind of feathery edge at the top there. That is actually the bottom of the fabric from where it was woven. Those bits wouldn't necessarily be seam finished or even hemmed by the Vikings. They used to quite happily wear them with those bits loose because they wouldn't unravel. And finishing and hemming is all about stopping things from unraveling, meaning that they last longer and you can continue to wear them for as long as possible. So this is the sleeves going in, and once that's done we will have the basic dress complete. It was a fairly fast process. It only took one afternoon to get the whole dress made and assembled, and obviously you can scale this to be sized for a human or a child or an adult or whatever you want. Just use those measurements, shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to where you want it to end, and shoulder to wrist, to actually shape your tunic. Not entirely sure what I'm doing here. More sewing. Oh, this is just finishing up the arms. I've attached them around, but I hadn't sewn up the bit from underneath the gusset to the end of the arm, so that's being done here now. And this is just finishing that bit off on the other side. And there we have it, one dress shape already sewn together. Now we need to do all the finishing off. The finishing off is the bit that takes the longest. So the first thing I need to do is to actually finish off all of the seams on the inside. I do that by trimming off one of the loose ends and folding the other over, and then using a whip stitch to just hold it down so it covers up all of the loose edges, keeps everything nice and contained, and means that nothing is going to fray as you use it. It does take quite a bit of time because there are a lot of seams and all of them need to be secured like this, otherwise things will come apart while you're wearing them. If you aren't ever going to see the inside of the dress, you can get away with using pinking shears or covering them with a tape. There are various other ways of finishing off seams, but this one is fairly straightforward and it looks good and it gives a good long-lasting finish, so that's what I was using. I think we're just about getting towards the end there. That's going around the seams on the sleeve and getting those finished as well. And once that's all done, we then move on to the hemming. The bottom of the dress needs to be hemmed, around the neck needs to be hemmed, and the ends of the sleeves needs to be hemmed. For all of those, I'm using a very simple rolled hem. That gives a nice tidy edge and is great for light fabrics, and this is a very lightweight linen, so it doesn't need a heavy hem, and it would look really awkward if you had folded a broader hem. So a tiny little rolled hem is all we need. So this is working around the bottom of the dress. And you can see there it's coming together quite well. Reasonably neat finish, which should last quite nicely for Hilde to wear. And then we're on to the sleeves. They need their hems done as well because the arms will move around quite a bit, so those bits would fray quite quickly if they were left unfinished. Like I say, all in all, this took just a few hours to make, and doing it in a human size doesn't take that much longer. You just have a few longer seams for the sides and the sleeves. The neck is pretty much the same. Hilde does have quite a large head. When we made the tunic for Einar, that was done using this same pattern, and his decoration was added on afterwards. We won't be adding any decoration on here because the underdresses tended to be quite plain. They were usually just a plain unbleached linen, but sometimes they would have been blue, and we've gone with blue because it looks good on Hilde.
And here is my finished dress. Doesn't it look pretty? I love the colour. likes it as well.
Well, that was interesting. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and we'll be back with something else later.